In Touchstone version 3.0, we're very proud to be releasing 3 Canadian models for wind perils. First, the Canadian Severe Thunderstorm model, which is an update of an existing model, and then 2 new models, one for Tropical Cyclone and one for Winter Storm.
So one of the big advantages of releasing 3 models together this year will be that we're covering the entire geography of Canada with all of the perils that impact the region.
They go from coast to coast, from all the way at the US border up to 60 degrees north, basically encompassing all of the Canadian population.
The modeling suite that we're releasing in Touchstone 3.0 will capture the regional variability in each of the perils and their contribution to the total risk for the locations.
The Severe Thunderstorm model for Canada is built on a lot of the research we did for the US, including smart smoothing, a lot of the radar analyses, and looking at reanalysis data from the Climate Forecast System reanalysis. We've made use of a lot of Canadian-specific data. We've looked at things like satellite images in Canada. We've looked at a lot of data from Environment Canada, including station data from over 100 stations across Canada. These 100 stations include things like hail observations, tornado observations since the late 1970s, and also straight-line wind and even rain observations. These have been very influential in our validation processes across Canada.
A lot of the work for all 3 of these models relates to the vulnerability, the engineering associated with the models. Lots of wind engineering has been done in Western University, and we know a lot about the building code variability and the different types of impacts that each of the perils have on the built environment. One of the things that we know is very important in Canada, given the 1998 ice storm event, is freezing rain. Freezing rain peril was something we studied in great detail using numerical simulations, and we've studied in depth the types of damages that can come from freezing rain, both direct damage to structures as well as items such as business interruption and additional living expenses. So that's something that will be available in the model that really gives you added depth to the loss potential.
So after our Canadian models were done, we brought a panel of experts up to our office here in Boston to review the 3 models. They spent a full day with us. They looked at all of the guts of the model, really behind the scenes tour of the model. We feel this is quite important because although we can build the best model ourselves, we want to make sure that independent experts from the outside, from Canada, from universities, have a look at the model and really can give their feedback and advice to improve it for the future.
Well, that was actually an interesting experience for me. I hadn't been exposed to some approach that you have here. I was very impressed with how conscientious people are. They've done a lot of work looking into the background research activities. They're trying to put those into realistic models, and to the extent that they can, to try to validate that against the information that is available. And with a lot of natural disasters, it tends to be a relatively short duration event, and so the data often is sort of limited. But the people here seem to be aware of that, and they do the best they can to try to surmount that particular issue.
We have data from 5 different Canadian insurers, which has been very helpful for the validation process for our models. One of the things that this data shows, for example, is that the aggregate losses are much higher than the occurrence losses. The total loss for a year tends to be much higher than the single largest loss event within a year. And this is not necessarily something you would expect when looking at more mainstream types of data sources, which is why using this real loss data from companies is quite important in our validation process.
In version 3.0 of Touchstone, users will be able to fully model all the atmospheric perils across Canada with one application.